Hi, this is Zach Waller Voice Ninja, speaking to you live from YouTube, and welcome to another installment of my new web series, Zach's Facts.
You take the good, you take the bad, you take them both, and there you have the facts of life. The facts of life. But when's the time you got to go and show your...
Now here's a question for you. If you hear these sounds, what do they remind you of? If those sounds brought back some childhood memories for you, then you would have grown up playing a Nintendo 64.
Wee-hee!
Or are still playing it, even to this day. The Nintendo 64 was first announced in 1995 in Japan as the Ultra 64. But unfortunately, due to a copyright claim from Konami, the name was changed to Nintendo 64, and then it was released in June of 1996 in Japan, and then September the same year in North America, and March 1997 for Europe and Australia. Now, the design of the console is nothing digital. It's truly an analog machine with analog audio and video, and it was possibly the last console to use cartridges, because a standard cartridge could hold up to 64 megabytes, while a PlayStation disc could hold 650 megabytes. Now, the console was used as a preceder or a successor for the mighty Super Nintendo, and also competed with the PlayStation and the Sega Saturn. Now, some of the games can be used with a jumper pack, but would also get an expansion pack which would double the RAM to 8 megabytes, which only a few games require. And the standard controller looks very strange at first, with 3 handles, with D-pad, analog stick, 4 C buttons, and a Z trigger at the bottom of the controller. And some of the games were bestsellers, even some at launch, including Super Mario 64, which was the best-selling game that ever appeared out of launch, and is still the highest-selling game to this day. But some of the cartridges were used for faster loading times when everyone else had moved to CDs. And this could hold up to more than 16 million colors than the Super Nintendo did. And there was some controversies with one game, which was Mario Party. Some of the mini-games tell you to rotate the analog stick as fast as you can, and then when you're finished playing, you would look down at your hands to find out it was bleeding, blisters, or friction burns. And this got such a negative backlash that customers would pay $80 to Nintendo for a protective glove. And as I said in some videos before, Nintendo actually had some special edition consoles and controllers. Like, if you were like me, you would get the Nintendo 64 twin controller pack that comes with the console, the standard grey controller, plus a free limited edition clear purple controller. Although some consoles would come with the system, but also with a limited edition gold controller. And you would think that this was made for 2 players, like Super Nintendo could only hold up to 2 controllers, but they actually had 4 controller ports, so you can play games with 1 to 4 players simultaneously. And some magazines claim that this was 3 times more powerful than any other system. And I would say they were right. And of course, the controller came in a variety of colors like red, green, yellow, blue, but some were exclusive to Japan, like the watermelon red with a clear bottom, or the Fantastic series in North America with grape, fire, ice, jungle, smoke, and watermelon. And for the games, there were some of the most popular Nintendo 64 games that you could buy, especially in here. Some of which are Super Mario 64, Mario Kart 64, which is my father's favourite, and my personal favourite multiplayer game that I loved when I was a kid, GoldenEye 007, based off the movie of the same name in 1995. And some games required a special expansion that would let you feel the game. And some games like Lylat Wars, the game comes packed with a rumble pack, a wireless device that simply clicks in at the bottom of your controller and provides force feedback when you're hit by the enemy. Now, this was the first console to have a rumble pack for a controller, or first controller to rumble, and since 1983 to use an analog stick. But some games like Pokemon Stadium 1 and 2, and Mario Golf and Mario Tennis, and Perfect Dark, some games require this, the Transfer Pack. And for the Transfer Pack, if you were playing Pokemon Stadium 1 and 2, you could use Pokemon Red, Blue, Yellow, Gold, Silver, and Crystal to transfer your Pokemon from the Game Boy onto the Nintendo 64. But for some games like Mario Golf and Mario Tennis, chances are, if you have the Nintendo 64 version, and if you had the Game Boy Color version, you would transfer your characters from the Mario Golf or Tennis Game Boy Color game, and transfer them from the Game Boy Color version to the Nintendo 64, which I thought was crazy back in the day. And you can still do this even to this day. And if you want to save your game, chances are you would get a special mini cartridge called a controller pack, which is a mini cartridge that would click into your controller and would let you save games directly into your system. And some games like Donkey Kong 64, Perfect Dark, and Majora's Mask would require the expansion pack. As I said before, doubled the RAM to 8 megabytes, which only a few games required. And some games were even said to be some best-selling games, like The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time, which this was the best-selling game since Super Mario 64, and I would have to say it was a good role-playing game, especially in its gold cartridge. The system was supported until 2002, and it sold around 32 million units worldwide. And all in all, there were 388 games, even including Japan, 296 in North America, and a couple in Japan, totaling to 388 games. And since the release of the Nintendo GameCube, which was released in 2001, the Nintendo 64 had one last game released in 2002, and it was Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3. And the system was supported until it was discontinued on April 30th, 2002. And I was like, we will never forget you, Nintendo 64. Well, ironically, forget about that, which was not around anymore, but you will always live on. Now, for the retail price when it was first released, it was valued with the console and a controller at just $199. Although some of the cartridges were a little bit more expensive, totaling at $79.99, or even $49.95. but some were even expensive than $248. But all in all, it was a great console. And speaking of best-selling games, Rareware, now owned by Microsoft, made a selection of games which would later be bestsellers like Banjo-Kazooie. And where would Banjo-Kazooie be without its first sequel, Banjo-Tooie? And creating such games as a Mario Kart spin-off like Diddy Kong Racing, which was a cash grab for Mario Kart 64, and then Rareware decided to release a game made for kids called Conker's Quest, but then later renamed to Conker 64 12 Tales, although critics were skeptical, calling it a Banjo-Kazooie clone, and so they decided to release an adults-only game, Conker's Bad Fur Day. And this was possibly the highest capacity for a cartridge, and I would say it was one of the best. Although there were some games based off of novels, like Shadows of the Empire, and I still have that novel to this day. And anyway, that pretty much wraps this episode up. And if you were a gamer, what was your favourite Nintendo 64 game? If so, leave a comment in the section below, and don't forget to subscribe, like, and share on my Facebook and YouTube channel. From all of us here on YouTube, this is Zach Waller Voice Ninja with Zach's Facts, saying sayonara.
See you next time.